rolling in it.
Goddamn inflation.
Goddamn fucking market crunch or whatever what are they call it? Market supply chain shortages. Goddamn supply chain shortages.
I like how they keep blaming Biden for the.
Well, he's the current president and has been for 10 months.
How is his fault? What is he gonna do? Jump in a fucking?
But fair is fair. I had to hear fucking Trump's America for the last.
Is he
No,
gonna jump
shut up
on
with that. You can't say that wasn't Trump's America.
Is he gonna jump on a semi and start moving all these freights?
No,
that's what's happening.
But I think
the freight started from last year.
Yeah, it's true.
Because of COVID and
Trump.
The
one
under
policy,
Trump,
the one policy that could exacerbate it and has is like the companies require making the vaccine mandatory, so people are quitting over that. But that's not
what companies? Like truck driving companies?
Yeah, just depending. Yeah.
I've never heard of a truck driver shortage because of the vaccine.
No, they've had a truck driver shortage.
Yeah, we've had a
for at least a couple of years now.
Well, this is that silver wave they're always talking about. All the old guys that have been doing it for so long, they're getting out of the game because it's changing so much. When they were doing it, they were making great money, but even on top of that, they own their own rigs.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you don't own the rig. You just
you can, but it's gonna. I mean, it's $100,000.
That's what I'm saying. It takes a while to earn that, especially working for a company. So what they do is it's like a fucking taxi. They lease the semi and then work for the company. So they're paying the company to use their truck, and then they're driving their goods all over. And it's a lot different too because when you're rolling, you're making money. So with all these, you can only drive 8 hours a day. You have to take so many.
That's the other thing, the new regulations.
Yeah.
Because what happened before is truck drivers were just driving straight.
Mm-hmm. You did 20 hours or whatever.
They were taking those trucker pills.
No-dos and
meth
in a bottle.
Cocaine.
Well, coke might be a little expensive to fuel.
Well, I mean, they were making that kind of money back then.
Well, you're probably not too far off.
And so, they were causing accidents as well. That's why they started limiting how much.
When I think a lot of young people don't want to become truck drivers because they think, and probably rightly so, that within 10 years, that
things are going to be automated.
Automated, yeah.
No, not 10 years.
Especially for hazardous material.
No, not yet. We don't have the infrastructure yet for things to be automated on the freeways.
Completely automated.
Well, see,
they'll still have to have a driver in there.
I think the only way they'll ever make automation is if it'll have to just work on our streets. So the computers will have to get good enough at driving that that's it. They can just drive on the streets like a person would.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way. It's not going to be like, oh, this is for driving self-driving cars only lane or
sensors
for like a lot of the things.
Everybody has to be in a self-driving car. No, that's not going to happen.
Especially because you could regulate where like the truck couldn't go over a certain speed, and it would automatically brake if it got like things like that. I think we're gonna have to have drivers in there for quite a while because they'll just make it that way so that people have jobs, but I don't think that a lot of young people are like getting into the truck driving.
Well, truck driving is like a trade.
So
young people just don't want to be tradesmen anymore.
When you say young people, you mean like 19 and over?
Yeah.
So it's true.
Yeah.
I feel like they're bombarded with technology, with their cell phones, television, internet, computers, with being so they did a survey for kids, right?
Okay.
And they were saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? And for the longest time,
the cowboy astronaut.
Right, exactly.
Now it's YouTuber.
It is, or a TikTok.
I'm a video
gamer. YouTube, it's your fault.
You goddamn YouTube! What are you doing to our children? We need to do? We need to start a parent organization that limits what YouTube's allowed to show, so they can't corrupt our children.
So, it's hard work too. Truck driving.
Like I said, it's a trade. You have to get certified. You have to put in so many hours. It's a hard job. Maybe not at all times,
but it also keeps you away from your friends and family.
Yeah, you travel.
So you have to have that mental state. Yeah,
Or you gotta have 3 families, like some of the trucks.
Well, and that's probably part of the reason now it doesn't work anymore. Everything's so connected.
Yeah.
My wife's
You can't
like,
have 3
what were you
families,
doing in fucking
Uh-huh.
Maryland for 3 days?
Yeah.
Baby, cross country.
So, but yeah, that's what's happening right now. I showed Gary a video of this crane operator in one of the ports.
California ports.
Mm-hmm. And it's just they're to capacity on containers.
And something too that it just
And then you got all these ships that are waiting to be offloaded.
Yeah.
Right.
But California's got a lot of very restrictive trucking laws, so they can't carry 2 trailers. I'm not 100% sure what they are, but they're not in California. They can only use the right hand lane.
You know, any kind of crazy law you think of, like California will happen.
Well, especially restrictive to delivery drivers, because
Yeah.
that's why when you go to the border, they have that big truck stop where you see them always offloading trucks. I bet there's a weight difference from here in California,
Yeah.
where the trailers can only carry so much, and then you can't do double trailers. But in California specifically, like semis have to keep in the right lane. They can't go over 55. So I'm sure just that part alone really bottlenecks stuff getting off the docks.
Yeah.
Because even if you had a fully staffed crew, they're only taking 1 box at a time.
Right.
So it's like.
Well, it was cool in that video that you showed me because it's all the container movement is automated. It's on automated little fucking truck things that just move the containers around. So
until you get right
the
to
port
the end,
is really efficient.
where you load it on
Right.
the truck.
And then,
The port is efficient.
yeah, then
It's taking the containers out of the port.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
bottleneck's the drivers.
Right.
yeah.
Delivery.
Not enough drivers.
Or like to your point, Jake. Yeah, maybe that is a factor that they can't do double trailers and things like that.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure it's a contributing factor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of things, just like anything else. Nobody wants to drive because gas is so expensive.
Oh, yeah.
OPEC's
Why is
decided-
gas going up?
OPEC,
Do you know?
they just decided they're not going to
Just-
pump
it's-
any more gas.
It's
It's
low
record
supply,
profits.
high demand.
You saying the Middle East is doing this? Because that's what OPEC is.
Well,
OPEC
we
is
asked-
oil-producing countries.
We asked the
We're
Middle
part of
East
OPEC.
to pump more. It wouldn't be a problem if we still had capacity on oil, but we don't.
But we weren't using that oil. We were exporting it.
Well,
that's all.
here's
Oil, it's like the global.
Here's the problem
oil,
with
like-
oil is
Yeah.
everybody's supposed to sell it off and then buy it back.
Yeah.
That's what OPEC is.
Oh.
They all pump
It's
the
like-
oil and then they all sell it back. At
But
the
we
same
could have
price.
increased the capacity on our own.
We should
still have that.
nationalize things like oil and make them.
No, it's not going to happen. Because right now our dollar is still backed by OPEC.
We
Yeah.
wouldn't need OPEC.
Well, and
We would
again, we
be
were talking
our
about like
dollar
last
would
time
be backed by
Norway. Norway is like half nationalized, where essentially it's a private company, but the government owns a bunch of stock in that.
Yeah, we were talking about that, like 51%.
That
or
like
whatever.
if you were going to do, because nationalize is different. Nationalize is it's completely controlled.
I might
the
not be
government.
saying the right term.
Yeah.
Exactly,
Well,
but in
yeah.
my mind, it's the government owns it 100% and uses profits made to subsidize costs in America and to offset taxes that people have to pay. So if you
That's a
make
whole nother.
the government should nationalize mines and basically anything you pull from the earth on American soil, and then use that to offset the government overhead. You know what I'm saying? They would sell it, and they would give it to America cheap. They would sell it overseas for a profit, and they would use that profit to offset the cost of tax that people have to pay. And ideally, the government would produce enough to give America all these raw resources very cheaply, and then make enough overseas that we wouldn't have to pay taxes. The government would self-fund instead of a company like Lithium Reno that's owned by Canada and China.
Yeah, I mean we talked about foreign companies.
Yes,
Doing that.
especially foreign
I agree
companies.
with that,
But
I don't
most-
think the government should control like all
All of our
Resources.
natural resources. It's hard to say because then you're gonna have it's going to be run by the FDA. It's going to be run by the whatever regulatory
Well, I mean-
agency, or it's going to be run by a different agency,
Yeah.
oversaw by another agency.
But yeah, the government, it's not.
Because
very
layers of
efficient.
oversight's how you keep them honest.
Yeah,
you
I mean,
know?
you're always gonna have oversight.
That's what,
but
like,
even the
comptrollers and
oversight's
shit are
really
for.
inefficient.
Right. So they're saying gas prices or crude oil was really cheap back in spring of 2020. That's because nobody was driving.
Because nobody was
because of
driving,
the
yeah.
pandemic. It went down to, it says here, negative $40 a barrel.
It costs money to
Yeah, it
pump
was literally they were pumping so much, and
They weren't
had
pumping
ex-
so much. They weren't selling enough.
Well, no, I mean like so
They were
you have to,
overproducing.
yeah, like because they were still keeping capacity,
Uh-huh.
but then they were having all these
Excess oil.
yeah, excess oil that they were just having to store, and
Mhm.
it cost more to store than it did.
But now that people are
So-
going back to work, the economy's starting to
Yeah.
hum. Right? They're saying that's why oil prices have skyrocketed to $120,
When they shut down a lot of their,
and U.S. oil
Production.
prices finished above $80 a barrel.
so they're finding it hard to like scale back up, essentially.
Yeah, maybe. Or
But
they're
also
they're artificially keeping prices
Well,
high
that
to
is part of it, 'cause
recoup
OPEC
losses,
OPEC was
or
because,
to just gouge because you kick them while they're down.
Mhm.
That's the definition of for profit.
yeah. The
So-
problem with like Saudi Arabia, those like they still owe all their payments to their citizens because they get all that oil money. So like
Mhm.
Dubai, the Emirates, Saudi Arabia. So they were having like when oil was really low, they were basically having to take on a bunch of debt to still make their payments.
But
to
that's
their
the
citizens.
perfect example.
But
Saudi
now
Arabia
they
does
want
it.
to keep oil high to like recoup that, which is why they're not scaling up production. Because we're basically asking them to scale up production to increase supply, so you can lower the cost.
But
So
Saudi
now it's low supply, high demand.
Saudi
But they
Arabia's
don't want to.
citizens, their country has nationalized oil production. Their citizens don't have to work. They get a
Yeah,
check
But
every.
they're a good example of like what not to do.
They import immigrants to do all the work for them, and
Well,
everybody is basically like
That's putting it
everybody's
generously.
retired.
They essentially use
Slave
a
labor.
slave class.
Well, yeah, because it's.
They don't let them
Yeah.
leave. They treat them like slaves.
So
They,
what-
you mean they
yeah.
buy
And
people?
the actual population, they do essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
It's
go
that
to-
part of
Can't
the
leave.
world.
Like once you're with that employer,
They go
unless
to
they
third
sell
world
you to somebody
nations
else.
and tell people that they're going to go and work.
Yeah, Southeast Asia and India especially.
Yeah, swoop
Mhm.
up some
So when they get there,
impoverished people.
they say, well, we paid for your flight. What they do is they take away their passport.
Yeah.
And so they say, we paid for your flight. We're paying for your room and board.
Room and board.
So, and you have to pay us that back first. And
So they
it's
make
a
like
lot of
$2
money.
a day
Right.
or something.
And they just can't get themselves out of debt.
Yeah.
And so
I mean,
every day
that's-
that goes by, that's
Yeah.
another day of room and board and food.
And then if they
Company
complain,
town.
they just deport them and
They don't get any of
have
it
somebody
paid.
else. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like Saudi Arabia, those countries are not run well. Even though the citizens are really rich, like that's not necessarily a good thing. And it's like, what do they spend their money on?
Well, but here's the thing.
Or
I'm not saying
Tigers and
we should.
Ferraris and-
I'm not saying we should build Saudi Arabia, America.
No, I know.
I'm just
I know
saying,
you're not.
as an example, that's a
Yeah.
country, and you, like you said, their
But
people are very wealthy
yeah, but
to the point where they own slaves.
yeah,
You don't get
that's
much
part of the
more.
problem with it is like,
And I'm not saying we should
kind
do
of
that
breeds
here.
corruption.
Yeah.
Whenever
But
you
I
have the
am
government
saying you can
paying-
offset a lot of the costs that the American people have to pay, and you could provide more social programs and everything that people want. So the rich people wouldn't have to pay as much taxes, and the poor people
Well-
would get all the help they need, and it would cost less.
To me, it would be
to
better,
everybody.
yeah, if the government was just a shareholder in those companies, rather than they're running them, they're doing everything.
It's true. The only problem is what I have with most private companies.
Well, you get the
especially
same
like
with the
for-profit
government. You always
corporations.
assume that the government will be
Well,
completely different than private
I
companies.
do,
And that's
because
not-
there's going to be so much more oversight, and it's not going to be
No,
everything's
like,
not
the
for
government's
profit.
terrible at like it does oversight, but it's also terrible at oversight.
Yeah, but that's not the government's fault that it's defunded in the oversight department.
No, like,
That's where we've talked
even,
about this
even
conservative,
with funded, there's still
defund.
corruption involved. There's
and that's why
still-
you
Who's
add
doing the
another layer.
corruption?
well,
Conservative.
No, well, you
no,
can't
it's
say
everybody.
that.
Everybody's corrupt.
But that's why you layers of oversight.
Yeah.
That's all you need. You just more somebody to oversight the oversight. That's why they have police for police. You know, it's not like that's not true.
Right.
And then they have people that police them.
Yeah, they need to enforce laws that are in for the oversight, but they don't.
Yeah.
They turn a blind eye.
Because of corruption.
Or
Corruption,
they have
get
topped
paid
out
off, or-
fines. So, you know, it seems like a lot of money, but really, in the big scheme of things, it's
Well, and then
topped
how
out.
is the money spent? Because then that.
Well, but it's something that's really great about like government, especially on like a local level, like say a school district, for example. All of their funds, all of their everything is matter of public record. So you can get on like the Phoenix Schools website, and you can see what their budgets are. You can see exactly what they spend their money on. They have pay classes for every employee. They have how much they spend on NS, nutritional services, bus drivers, art, history. I mean, everything's broken down by department, by subject. They can't keep that information secret. It's required.
Right.
But then when you have a private company that's profit driven over like service driven, they don't have to disclose this. They've written the laws in such a way that they only have to disclose this much, and then all the rest of it gets done off the books, or not off the books, but in just ways people can't see. If you have a big government run mine, it's going to have, this is how much the supervisor makes, this is how many employees they have, this is how much they spend on maintaining equipment. Every penny they spend, because it's taxpayer funds, has to be accounted for.
Right.
I mean, you have to get 3 quotes on every job. You have to have a receipt to go with every order. You know, like to the penny, they keep track of funds.
It's such a big
In theory.
machine.
In theory, it's true.
So many gears. I mean,
Well,
it's
but that's-
so hard to. You know,
There's plenty of ways to pad budgets and do all kinds of stuff, and built it in. where
I'm
you
sure
wouldn't
there's
know.
loopholes written into the laws.
Well, not even loopholes. I'm talking about
That's
just
true. That's
literally.
exactly like literally written into the law, so that here's how you exploit it, and it's like you do it in such a way that when you're the one that is writing the laws, that it's favorable to you as a business. Oh, you want to open a mine? You got to fill out $10 million in permits, and then that doesn't even guarantee you the mine. That's just the permitting fees, and it's like really. So you're kind of cutting it out. You want to put a new drug on the market? 7 years. You got to go through research.
Yeah.
So it's not even the 3 years or 5 years that a company can't be profitable. It's that you have to wait 7 years before you can even make money off that product. Obviously, you have to already be a successful company to be able to take that kind of hit for 7 years to go through all the trials, to produce it, before you can start making
the
a
reason
profit.
they give for all that is that it's protecting the consumer. Because
That's the reason they give, yes, and it sounds good when they sell it, but in reality, it's
Well,
it's
even with the FDA,
it's
it's
the
stringent
market
because
writing its
there's
own
still
laws.
stuff that